Hi everyone, and welcome to EvaChristensenArt.com. I am Eva Christensen and welcome to my art room. So if you've been reading my blog at all, you probably have seen that I've been doing a series about how to paint for absolute beginners. And today I'm going to take you through how to paint for absolute beginners for acrylic paints. Acrylic paints, yay, they're so easy. They're so foolproof. If you make a huge mistake, you can completely paint over it. It's probably going to be fine. They're very forgiving, and there's a pretty small barrier to entry for acrylic paints. So I think overall, a really solid choice if you are a beginner painter. So when you go to the store, what do you need to get? Well, I am going to provide you with a shopping list in the blog post that's linked with this video, so that you can go and feel very sure that you are getting exactly what you need. But if you're planning to paint, the very first thing you need is going to be paint. And while I think that you can probably skimp in some areas, I really don't think that you can skimp on the quality of your paint. You can buy professional artist quality, or you can buy student quality, and the student quality paint, it's a lot less, but you definitely get what you pay for. When you put it on your canvas, you'll probably notice that it's a little uneven, or it might seem, some colors might seem kind of granular. And if you're not an experienced painter and you're just starting out, you're more apt to blame deficiencies with the paint on yourself and your abilities, and it can kind of be demotivating. So as far as paint quality goes, I recommend getting the best that you can afford. If you're in Canada, two that you can probably find quite easily and that I would recommend are Tri-Art paint, which is an artist professional quality paint that's made here in Canada. And as an alternative to that, there's also the Golden professional quality, artist quality paint. With the professional paints, the paint makers are more likely to use the pure pigment color. You're less likely to see hues or imitations of well-known colors. Like you'll often in a student line see, for example, cadmium red hue. So what that is it's not cadmium red at all. It costs a lot less, which is great, but it's just pigments that kind of look like cadmium red, and when you paint with it, it's really not going to behave the way you would expect cadmium red to behave on your surface or in your mixes. Or if you're reading any sort of art instruction book, you might feel like, what's going on? It's not mixing the same way. This looks terrible. When I mix black with it, it turns green, or something crazy like that. Not like that extreme, but it just won't behave the same way as a pure cadmium red would, and it's not going to look as nice. So if you can, buy the best paint possible. You're going to need something to paint on. You can buy, just like you can buy sketchbooks, you can buy books, just like a sketchbook, with canvas sheets. Usually those are kind of plasticky, and they have the appearance of having just gone through a press, these plasticky sheets, and then literally like the texture was pressed into the sheets. I used to have a book of them back when I was in high school, but they're not great. They're good for practice. So if you want something to practice on, kind of inexpensive, go for it. But you know, if your drawing skills are pretty sound, and you're able to plan your sketch out well beforehand, and you're somewhat confident in what you're about to paint, I would recommend just getting kind of like a bulk package of small canvases. So these guys here are 12 by 12 pre-stretched canvases. They came in something like a pack of 15 or 20 from Michael's Arts and Crafts store, and I think I had a 50% off coupon. They were definitely less than $20 for a whole bunch of canvases. And the other good thing is if you're painting on a pre-stretched canvas and you happen to make a masterpiece, it's really easy to frame and hang up. So there's no worries there. But I definitely recommend going pre-stretched. Don't bother to do it yourself. That's a whole other tutorial for a completely different day. It's kind of tricky to do. The canvases have a wood stretcher bar, 4 that lock together at the corners at the joint there. They're specially cut out. And then the canvas itself, someone has been very kind and stretched that for you, and then it's just stapled along the edges. And so when they're pre-stretched, they're just so nice. They're already perfect. There aren't any areas that are a bit loose or that are going to cause you trouble. You can be very confident in these. And I would just get the regular canvases. If you're starting out, these are about 1/2 inch thick. The gallery artist quality canvases are about 1.5 inches, and they're lovely and they're so substantial, and I love painting with them. But if you think you're going to be using these for practice, perfectly sufficient to use these, and perfectly acceptable if you do paint your masterpiece to hang this up on your wall. So go with these first. That is an area where you can save money, and perfectly great. You'll notice that it's like an off-white on the back here. That is the raw canvas, and it has been very kindly pre-painted for you with white gesso to prepare the surface. So they're just lovely. Got your paint, got your canvas, and you're going to need a few brushes. You don't really need to get too many, and if you're starting out with smaller canvases, this is from a 12 by 12 pack, and this is a smaller size here. I think that's an 8 by 8, so it's tinier. You're not going to need a really, really big brush, and in fact I don't like enormous brushes because I find them difficult to do a lot of detail work. It's really up to you and what your artistic vision is. But as far as brushes go, you do have kind of 2 choices. You can pick a very rigid kind of hog's hair bristle brush, and I'm a bit embarrassed because these haven't been very well taken care of. These are a filbert long-handled hog's hair bristle brush, and you can see it's not a soft brush, but they're good for pushing paint around a canvas, and if you're using like a large quantity of paint, they're more likely to leave like a brush stroke or some texture in your paint on your canvas. So if that's what you're going for, then this is the brush for you. That is not generally what I'm going for. I like the brush stroke to disappear, so I always use watercolor brushes, and I don't get real sable, Kolinsky sable brushes. You'll just destroy them with your acrylic paint, and it's not necessary. I get the synthetic, short-handled for the most part, watercolor brushes. They come in all different shapes and sizes. These are kind of like small to medium type sizes here. For example, this is a number 8 round. It's really, really good for detail work. This, you can see here, this is a filbert brush. It has a rounded tip, but it's still a flat brush, so it's kind of like a cross between a flat and round brush. And probably this is the type of brush that I use the most. It's great for pushing paint around, but also a little bit of detail. And recently I started using a lot more for oil and acrylic the flat angled brush. This is just so useful, especially when I'm cutting in with my background, for getting a really sharp edge and being able to kind of come to a point with my line where I need to cut corners really sharply. I really like these. This is a 3/8 of an inch flat angled brush, very good size. So as far as brushes go, you don't need to buy at all what is most expensive. I think I usually buy the least expensive brushes in terms of the watercolor brushes, but I do buy them from the display where you pick out your brushes, like single brushes. I don't generally buy a pack of them. You don't want to buy a pack of brushes where the bristles are just made of plastic, and it's for like an unbelievably inexpensive price. You do get what you pay for. If you get really, really inexpensive brushes, you're more likely to see that the bristles are just falling out into your paint as you mix, and then that's going to go on your canvas, and then that's going to become part of your painting. So just something to keep in mind. But if you stick to the displays where you're picking out the brushes as single brushes, and generally about $4 to $7 per brush, I think that's kind of a good price point to aim for. And even these 3 brushes that I've shown you here, with those shapes and those sizes, like those are enough to get started painting with. Really, you could get away with just 1 round and 1 flat and kind of get moving. My favorite size for the round brush is a round number 6. I find that that's the one I tend towards the most. And for the filberts, this is a 1/4 inch, and again, really versatile. So kind of some combination of these types of brushes and this type of size, and that would probably serve you really well. But you certainly don't need to spend a ton of money on the brushes, because you're just going to be really upset when you forget to wash your brushes and the paint dries on them and you have to throw them out. And it's always kind of heartbreaking, but a little less so when you didn't pay too much. So you have your paint, you have your brushes, you have your canvas. If you fill up an empty container with some water, you can go ahead and start painting, and that's really all you need to do. One of the problems with acrylic paint, and one of the reasons why it makes me angry sometimes, is that it just dries so quickly. So you can stroll over to the mediums section at your art store, and you might want to pick up something like this. It's called Retarder. So this is, if you can see it there, it's the golden retarder. Sometimes when you thin your paint too much with water, you'll actually break it down so much that you've compromised its integrity. So you'll put it on your canvas and it just kind of runs off, and it doesn't hold its shape. It can't stay on the canvas, and it's just past the point of where you should have diluted it. But if you use something like a retarder, the paint is more likely to keep its integrity, and also this product will help to make it dry more slowly. But don't be fooled, it's not going to dry slowly like an oil painting. It'll just dry a little less slowly. So with acrylics, you're still working quickly, and just don't be surprised if, like on a hot sunny day, the paint is drying as you place it on the canvas. So that's everything you need. In terms of the colors in your palette, I am going to include those in my written blog post for you, but you can get away with fairly few colors, pretty basic list. You probably always need white when you're painting with acrylic, unlike something like watercolors, but I will include that for you in the shopping list. So now, coming up in part 2 of this video, I am going to take you through maybe your very first acrylic painting, and we are going to paint an apple, one of the most popular things to paint in all of still life painting is the apple and assorted other fruits. This one that I have here has a few different colors in it, and we're going to have the light reflecting off of it and some shadows being cast. So I'm going to take you through how I would go about getting this on your canvas in terms of your drawing, what colors you might pick from your palette that I'm going to recommend to you. It's not maybe as many as you think, and how you would go about prepping your canvas, getting started. And if you've never painted before, by the end of my tutorial, you may have your very first acrylic painting ready to hang on the wall, which would be just fabulous. So stay tuned for part 2. I'm gonna go through that with you. And again, thank you so much for visiting.